This is Thiago Álvarez Mendoza, and he's one of the most promising young footballers on the entire planet. The only thing is, he doesn't actually really exist. In fact, he was created when I asked ChatGPT to imagine a fictional Wonderkid footballer for us to then put into Football Manager and follow his career. And that's what we're going to do today. Go on. Okay, so I asked ChatGPT to create a Wonderkid footballer in Football Manager 2024. And this here is that player. His name is Thiago Álvarez Mendoza, and he's a left winger, left-footed left winger from Argentina, playing in Greece. Now, the exact prompt I used was the following. I said, I'd like you to imagine a fictional Wonderkid footballer. You will conceptualize their backstory, origin, and then his footballing ability and attributes, which I will put into FM and we'll follow his career. Firstly, what is the name of your Wonderkid? Where was he born? And which club does he begin his career at? I said you can choose anywhere at all. And this is what ChatGPT have given us. We're going to fully jump into the make-believe today and follow the career of this young footballer. So he was born in San Juan in Argentina, and it says it's a rugged, football-hungry province near the Andes, far from Buenos Aires' bright lights, which is a lovely bit of detail there. Thank you, ChatGPT. So he's Argentinian, although he is eligible for Spain through his grandmother, which is quite fun. And I have added that into the game as well. He speaks Spanish and he's learning English, which might be important later on in his career. Potentially. I'll explain exactly how we're going to follow his career and how we're going to use ChatGPT to decide his next steps, etc. once we've gone through his profile a little bit and got to know Thiago, first of all. So he's 177 centimeters tall, about 5'10", between 5'9" and 5'10". He's left-footed and he has a driven, charismatic, media-friendly personality, apparently. He's labelled the next Angel Di Maria, which is a fun one, but with the swagger of a young Neymar. Not bad at all. Now, this is where it gets interesting and where ChatGPT threw a little bit of a curveball, as you may have noticed before. His current club is Asteras in Greece. In-game and in real life, I believe, because of licensing, they're known as Asteras Actor, and they play in the Super League in Greece. The backstory for this is apparently that Thiago's father was a journeyman midfielder in the Argentinian second division, and after retiring early due to injury, he took up a coaching job in Greece. Apparently, Thiago was dazzling at youth tournaments, and his big break came when he moved with his father to Tripoli in Greece at the age of 11. Here, he made his way through the academy until at 16, he was training with the first team. As well as this, several top clubs, including Sevilla, Ajax, and Atalanta, are reportedly monitoring him. And this is something that maybe we should pay attention to as well, again, when we talk about how we're going to make him make his next steps in his footballing career. As you can see in the game here, I have added his second nationality as Spanish. I put in where he was born, look. And also, the game did generate a season where he played for the first team last season, where he played 42 games and scored 6 goals, despite only being 15 years old. You can imagine that this would get a few teams getting excited about the prospects of a young player like this, right? The next thing I did was ask ChatGPT to give me his attributes, and this is what it churned out. It first told me he was going to be a left winger, although it says he can play up front, so I've added that into the game too. He's described as a winger, balanced personality, and then it gave me all of his attributes as follows. So really strong dribbling and finishing, passing, but a little bit lacking if you scroll down in his physicals, only 10 pace, 10 acceleration, and 12 agility. So it makes him pretty good look, especially when you look at that 15 finishing and dribbling. Although the physicals lacking, probably because he's only 15, mean that actually there is still room for him to grow. Now, just based on these attributes that I put into the game, it's given him a current ability of 91. It actually says recommended current ability of 88, but he's got a current ability of 91, which is of course maybe expected for a 15-year-old, but then compare that to the 130 current ability that Lamine Yamal has at 16, and that can potentially give you a bit of context about exactly how good our boy Mendoza is at this very moment now. ChatGPT did also give me some player traits, which I've added to his profile as well. And then it did give me this summary. It says, Thiago Álvarez Mendoza is a flair-driven, left-sided attacker, left-footed inside forward who thrives on beating defenders, making darting off-ball runs and bending the ball into the far corner. He's not a pure sprinter. Instead, he's a space reader with finesse and killer instincts, apparently. I find it interesting that he's left-footed and plays on the left-hand side. And then it also talks about him cutting inside and bending the ball into the far corner, which doesn't quite add up, but we're going to find out how his career goes, I suppose. And it says it here how we're going to do this. It says, go ahead and simulate his first season at Asteras Tripolis, and then ChatGPT will be ready to analyze his performance and help guide his next move when the season wraps. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to simulate the seasons, and then we're going to ask ChatGPT to recommend whether we move him on to another team, maybe a team that is interested in his services. Of course, he could move organically in the game as well. But we're going to be checking in and seeing his career led by ChatGPT for this video. Finally, though, we did need to come up with Álvarez Mendoza's potential ability. And so I asked ChatGPT to decide just how good could he potentially become? I asked him to decide randomly on a number between 165 and 200. This would give us a Wonderkid, but to what extent a Wonderkid he would become was up to ChatGPT, and he went with 183. This was apparently random, and he says that's elite level potential, enough to become a world-class star, maybe even a Ballon d'Or contender if developed properly. He's not a guaranteed Messi regen, but he's in that top 0.1% bracket if nurtured correctly. And that, I suppose, is what we need to do alongside the help of ChatGPT by following Álvarez Mendoza's career and making the right decisions about where we send him to at the end of each season. So, we get into it. Come on. Very quickly, before we do simulate that season, I need to just jump in and say that today's video is kindly sponsored by Surprise Shirts. Surprise Shirts are a market-leading Surprise Shirts mystery box company where you can go and get yourself an authentic mystery football shirt from anywhere really around the world. You guys probably love Football Manager, and they even offer an FM edition box, which means that the team that you receive, the shirt that you receive in the box, will be from a team that is playable in the base game of Football Manager 2024. The best thing of all, though, is that if you use my code 10Clayts, you get 10% off. Surprise Shirts also do offer a subscription service, which means you receive a shirt every month, as well as other perks such as giveaways. And guess what? I've got a saving for that as well. If you want to receive 20% off your first box, you can use the code 20Clayts to do exactly that. We genuinely love Surprise Shirts on this channel. It's a pleasure to work with them once again. Let's get back to our video and find out how Thiago has done in his first season. All right then, so at the end of this first season, and well, Thiago hasn't played any games. He's still at Asteras, as you'd probably expect, but he spent the entire season in their under-18s team, under-19s team, I should say, and he's played 0 games this year. One non-competitive game where he got a 6.4 in it, and other than that, well, he's kind of stagnating a little bit, isn't he? Which begs the question, what do we do with him now? Let's go to ChatGPT and see if they've got an answer. So what I said, season 1, he didn't play any first team games and spent the season in the under-18s. His potential ability is still the same. What should we do? And ChatGPT said, well, this is okay. Do not panic. He did a bit of a review of the situation and gave some options for year 2 development. He says, first of all, option 1, we can find him a loan move with competitive minutes. He suggests maybe the second division in Greece, or maybe Croatia, Slovenia, Hungary, where there are solid youth development leads, or maybe the Netherlands, which is very FM friendly for youth, apparently. I quite like this as an option. It's probably where I would lean towards anyway, although there are alternatives here. He also says you could promote him to the first team and then hope that he plays in cup games. I don't see this happening if he's not getting in the team last season and there's not been much development. I can't see him getting into the Asteras first team for season number 2. So I'm kind of saying we shouldn't do this one. Then the third option is that we could move him to a team that has a bigger academy. Maybe then he'd develop a little bit faster because they've got the facilities and the other talents around him. However, this feels like a risk. ChatGPT says it's an aggressive move, but it could fast track him to a better development environment. I think, though, I'd lean towards option 1 personally, and that is what ChatGPT recommends as well. It says, recommendation, secure a loan where he'll play 25 to 30 games, ideally in the correct position. So I think we should keep things simple and keep him in Greece and take him down to that second division. We already know that he played games there for Asteras when they were in the second division, so maybe moving him back down to that division is the best place for him right now. I gave ChatGPT the list of teams and they suggested Panachaiki, Levedakos or Diagoras, and then also gave me a list of teams to avoid, which is mainly the B teams and the better teams, which are more likely to have more competition to get into the team. In the end, it recommended Panachaiki, which would be the best blend of minutes, freedom and lower pressure. Thiago can light it up as a starting inverted left winger in a side that won't stifle his flair or creativity, at least in theory anyway. And that is exactly what I did. Here he is then at Panachaiki, who are, just to check in with them, predicted to finish about 10th, or mid-table, I should say, in the Greek second division. Yeah, 10th out of the 20 teams in there. So very much mid-table. I'm hoping he's going to get himself into the team. But it suggests here as a striker. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, although we weren't aiming really for him to play as a left winger, which is his actual position, isn't it? It does seem here, though, that they play with a 3 at the back. Giannis Tatsis, who's the manager, it would seem favours a 5-2-1-2. That would be interesting to keep an eye on. But this is where Thiago is going to be this year. And actually, if I just sort this by the current ability of the players in the squad, he is actually one of the better players, 3rd best according to this. And luckily, I suppose, the other players who are better than him don't necessarily play in his position, although there might be a bit of competition with Perez here for the striker spot. I think, though, he should get himself into this side. Let's go and find out how he does then. Season number 2 here at Panachaiki in the second division in Greece. And here we are then at the end of that second season. In May, And it looks here like this is pretty good news. He has played 27 times for Panachaiki, and that is mainly as a starter. 22 starts, 5 off the bench, 4 goals scored, 2 assists, and a pretty, I mean, it's pretty average, isn't it? A 6.66 average rating. He's not really torn up any trees, but we should remember at this stage that he's 17 years old now. So there's a long way to go. And something I should mention as well, this happened a while back, but he has picked up some under 20 caps for Argentina now. Clearly, they are rating him as a player for the future, and that's also reflected in his transfer value. He's up to 10 million to 30 million as a transfer value range, which, as we know, is probably to do with his potential ability. But has he made any steps forward in terms of his current ability? If we go to here, he has. He's up to a 97 current ability then. So playing regular football has had an impact on him, and he's made his first steps towards that 183 potential ability. Now, though, the question remains, is he good enough to go and play for the first team at Asteras, or should we be looking at another loan for this season, maybe staying at Panachaiki? How did Panachaiki do in the league? They finished 10th. I mean, they were predicted to finish 10th. They did finish 10th. Fair enough. Did they play? I wonder if we can look at that on here, actually. Did they play with that? Or maybe there. Yeah, they did use him as a striker look. I did wonder if that was going to be the case. Were they using that 5 or that 3 at the back system? Looks like they were. I wonder if that will have an impact on him as a player. I think ideally for next year, we want to get him moved to a place where he's going to play on that left-hand side, because that is, of course, his actual position, isn't it? That'll be something to bear in mind, I think. Before we decide, let's check in with Asteras, the first team, his parent club, of course. Have a look at the quality of some of the players who are in this side, especially, I guess, the left winger who's playing at the moment, which is Cito. Cito's current ability is 109, which makes him better than Mendoza and will probably mean that he starts ahead of him. Cito himself only actually started 3 games last season, meaning there was somebody else who was playing more regularly as the left winger. I'm going to take a guess based on appearances here, somebody who played 34 games, look, that at 114, Julian Bartola was the starting left winger ahead of Cito, and he's actually even better than Mendoza, who, according to this look, has been moved to the first team squad though. Not quite ready to start, but actually not that far off in terms of current ability to the rest of the squad. I suppose what we need to do is feed all of this information into ChatGPT and see what they decide is the best move for him for next year. I guess I'll do that now. So this is what I told ChatGPT. I said he's 17 years old, and then I gave him the stats from the season. You know, he played 27 times, scoring these goals, playing out of position as a striker, and then let ChatGPT know that he's been moved to the first team squad at Asteras, but is slightly lower current ability than his peers. I said, what do you think we should do with him for next season? And then ChatGPT then gave the following recap. He went through everything and said, a decision for year 3 at the age of 17 turning 18. Let's first of all, as an option, send him on loan again, and this time try to make sure he plays as a winger. As I mentioned before, we should look for somewhere where he's going to be a regular starter or an important player, and somewhere perhaps in the lower leagues in Greece again, or alternatively, something I'm going to add, potentially look for him to go abroad somewhere where he's going to play. I had a look at leagues that were of a similar level to the Super League 2 in Greece, and you've got the 3rd division in Portugal, you've got the 3rd division in Germany, and then, for example, the Polish league is around the same type of level as well. I'm intrigued a little bit by the Portuguese 3rd division, although I will, of course, leave this up to ChatGPT to make their decision. The other options they presented were to stay at Asteras and be a rotation player. I'm a little bit skeptical of this one because I can just see him not playing at all, because we've got not only Cito ahead of him, but the main guy, was it Ribeiro? I might have made that up. There was 2 players ahead of him in the pecking order, wasn't there? So I don't know if this is a viable option. And then thirdly, option C, I don't hate this, you know, there's the option to do a short-term loan until January and then maybe bring him back into Asteras. If he's managed to develop a little bit more, he can then actually get into the team, potentially. Overall, though, ChatGPT did this as a recommendation. They said we should send him out on another loan, this time, though, as a starting winger. They say he's too talented to be a bench option at Asteras, and his development will explode with 30 games in his natural role. Think of this year as the breakout year if the right loan happens. No pressure at all. They then also asked me if I'd like help to pick a specific Greek or foreign club, which is when I then presented them with the Greek Super League 2 table from last year, as well as the 3rd division in Portugal. Perhaps a loan move to Portugal? To which they replied, excellent, thanks for the tables. A move to Portugal's Liga 3 is an inspired idea. Thank you very much, ChatGPT. It's a technically focused, tactically rich league with a great track record of developing young attacking players. Here's how Mendoza's loan options stack up. They presented these teams. União de Leiria, who are the 4th favourites in the Portuguese 3rd division, AVS SAD, who are the 3rd favourites, Belenenses, who they say is a slightly volatile club culture, which I'm not quite sure what that means, but that was the 3rd team. And then the other options were to stay in the Super League 2 with Kalamata or Levadakos, who are decent, but again, he may end up back at striker. So, according to ChatGPT, the recommended move was to go to União de Leiria or AVS SAD, and from this, I've made a decision to send him to União de Leiria. I think, having a look at the squad, he should be able to get into this team. And the manager prefers to play a 4-3-3 with a left winger in there as well. If you look at his preferred formations, it's 4-3-3 tiki-taka or 4-2-3-1, which means you'd expect for this season them to be playing an out-and-out left winger. Hopefully, we'll be able to get into their team. Hopefully, he'll be able to get into this team, because that is the question, really, isn't it? Their key player is a right winger called Van der Gag, so I'm hoping he's going to play on that right-hand side. Hopefully, then Mendoza can slot in on this left-hand side. At least that's the plan. Let's go and find out if we've managed to get this loan move correct. If ChatGPT has managed to get this loan move correct, and whether or not this will actually be that breakout year that it was suggested it could be. See you in a year. All right, then, so we're at the end of season number 3 now, and Thiago is back from his 3rd season loan in Portugal. He spent the year at União de Leiria, and at that club, he played 28 times and scored 6 goals, 2 assists, and 2 player of the matches. He got an average rating of 6.97, which is pretty good. It's his best average rating of a season so far, and he's returned to the club here at Asteras. Now, he's made a bit of development in that time as well. After, I'd probably call that loan spell decent. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say he's really... Is it the true breakout year that we were hoping for? I'm not quite sure. But was it good for his development? I think you have to say yes. He's up to a current ability of 110, which, if we remember back, puts him about in line with the other wingers that are already at Asteras. You've got that, I think he was 110 was the main left winger, who may have gone up a little bit or down a little bit. But I think we could now say he will be challenging for a first team place here in the first team. And I wonder, is that the next move for him? Do we keep him at the club, or actually he's 18 years old? Should we be looking for a big move at this stage? Because other footballers, other players that have potential abilities of like 183 that we're hoping are going to make it to the very, very top, they're playing for first team clubs in top divisions around the world. Are we a little bit behind? Is this a little bit low key? Is maybe my question I'm asking here. Playing in the lower leagues in Greece and the lower leagues in Portugal, could we be expecting a bit more? Or maybe we couldn't, because his current ability is where it is. He's not going to get in other teams. Is ChatGPT getting this correct? I suppose is the question. The next question is, what do we do with him next year? So I've put all of that information to ChatGPT, and I summed it up like this. I said we sent him to União de Leiria. They used him as a left winger, stats attached, and he's risen to a 110 CA player at the age of 18. He's now probably good enough to fight for a first team place at Asteras. Should we keep him here or move him? So it sums it up quite nicely, actually. Shows he jumped from 97 to 110. Look, it shows his tackling. They used him properly as a natural left winger. He showed technical growth, end product, and improved work rate. The dribble and tackling stats suggest he's tracking back as well, which is great for his role long term. All of that seems positive. But now what do we do with him? Should we keep him or should we move him? So option 1, as I suggested before, is to keep him at Asteras and fight for a first team spot. The pros is that he has now got the same current ability as the one winger, and he's close to the other, so he should be pushing for minutes. He's comfortable at a senior level. It will be a good thing for him to establish himself in the Greek top division, and maybe even the club can start to build their club identity around him. If he finds a proper home here in Greece at an early age, that could be career defining, couldn't it? However, the cons, there is a risk of limited game time if the manager chooses one of those other wingers who have very similar current abilities to him. This means his career could stall slightly if he's played inconsistently, which is something we need to manage. The other option is that we could loan him now, not to a third division team in Portugal, but maybe instead a better division. It suggests here the Primeira Liga in Portugal, or the Eredivisie. I think that might be a step up too high at a current ability of 110. However, we could probably find a club that would be about the right type of level. Or we could send him to another Super League team in Greece, one maybe that has just been promoted, for example. However, overall, and I agree with this recommendation here, they suggest to keep him at Asteras for this season and hope that he's committed to that left wing role. If he starts to play consistently in the first team squad, we should see another big jump in his current ability, in his development this season. It does say as well, if by January he's not getting minutes, then a mid-season loan to a top division team. And with that in mind, then let's stick to the status quo. Let's keep him at Asteras and go another season and find out if he can get himself into that team. And here he is then, after a year back at his parent club in the first team now, hopefully. He's been handed the number 10 shirt as well, which is always promising, I think. If a young Argentinian footballer has been handed the number 10, I think you can hope that they're going to have a decent future about them. He has played football. This season, he played 29 times, scored 6 goals, didn't register an assist. He hasn't actually ever really registered that many assists. Look, for a winger that you'd maybe expect him to do a bit better than that. 1 player of the match, 6.67 average rating, 27 starts. The stats aren't incredible, but it is a step forward in that he is now playing football in a top division in Europe. Yes, it's only Greece, but actually this is steps forward. And at the age of 19, we do have time on our side, although I'm a bit worried that is he behind some of his peers? He's not got any more caps for Argentina under 20s, has he? So maybe that shows that he's stalled a little bit. Hopefully that's not the case. Has he made any development in terms of his current ability? Yes, he's up to a 123 current ability or a recommended one of 120. Really what I'd like to see is maybe a few more improvements with this pace and acceleration. It has gone up. It's up to 13 acceleration, 13 agility, 11 pace. Dribbling and finishing is fantastic. Those were always his biggest weapons, weren't they, as a footballer? And it does look like he is being used as a left winger. With 123 being his current ability then, let's have a look at the under-20s team for Argentina and compare him to some of his peers, if you like. Okay, so the under-20s team, he is better than all of the players in this. What about under-22s? That doesn't exist. Under-23s. Has he got a chance of getting into this? He should be in with a really good shot of getting into this under-23s team if there was a tournament that came up that they'd actually use the under-23s, right? The senior squad, though, who's their left winger? It's Garnacho at 169. He's got a long way to go. He's going to almost have to reach his potential to get into this Argentina squad. That's something we definitely want to aim for in the future, though. Who's the lowest current ability in the squad? It's a right back in Bustos at 129. I mean, he's close to that, but maybe he's got a long way to go until he gets into this Argentina team. But I think I would expect him to have played a bit more for the under-20s. Something to keep an eye on. Now, though, we do have a big decision, don't we? He's now established himself as, is he actually the key player here at Asteras? He is the key player in the squad. Oh, look. Interesting. It seems like they're using him as a striker, or at least they did use him as a striker in a previous game here. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing because he only scored, what, 6 goals. And if he's starting as a striker, is that a problem? It might be. Perhaps that's to do with him not being the quickest, that they don't want to use him as one of the wingers and instead put him in positions to score goals with this 16 finishing. Wherever he plays, though, I suppose we need to go back to ChatGPT and think about what he's going to do for next season. We try and branch out a little bit, move him on from playing in Greece and the lower leagues in Portugal. Is there a big move in him yet? He's not wanted by anybody as well. I've been keeping an eye to see if anybody's been interested in him. There was one time where a few teams were interested in loaning him. That's sort of been it, though, and his value's still pretty high. Can you see a team buying him for between 21 and 63 million? I'm not sure. Let's go to ChatGPT and find out what the advice is. Okay, so I fed this into ChatGPT. I said, this is his profile at the end of the 4th season. He's now 123 CA. He's had an okay season at Asteras and gave the stats. He's at the age of 19 now. Should he move to a higher rep team or stay here and cement his place as a first teamer? How can we ensure he reaches his potential? And ChatGPT replied by saying this is a pivotal moment in Thiago Álvarez Mendoza's career. I agree. The classic next step fork that defines whether a Wonderkid becomes a national icon or just another what if. Quite dramatic there, but I sort of do agree with that. Here's the review look. So we can see that the CA is 123 and we've got 60 points of ability to try and make up in the next few years. Of course, at the age of 19, the development is so much quicker. We kind of want to get this done quickly rather than having to rely on him improving still when he's 25, 26, which is usually a bit more slow progress, isn't it? It gives a breakdown of everything else here, look, and then it says decision points, stay or move. Option A, stay at Asteras and cement star status. He is now one of the better players, if not the best player at the club. Loved by fans, he gets regular starts. It's a safe space to develop without pressure. However, the ceiling may be capped at Asteras. Will he plateau if teammates aren't good enough to push him? And his average rating of only 6.67 suggests that maybe the system or the tactics aren't ideal. Maybe this is because he's playing as a striker, whereas we want him to go on to become that left winger in the future, don't we? So option B is to move to a higher rep team, perhaps having a look at going to maybe the Eredivisie or maybe the top division in Portugal or Belgium, or maybe like a second division team in Germany, so the second Bundesliga, look, perhaps. Each of these leagues has their own sort of individual styles as detailed here, and maybe that's something to consider too. It says pros here, this gives him better facilities, teammates and tactical depth. It pushes him into European competition exposure potentially. and also accelerates the mental and tactical attribute growth. However, we need to be wary that if he doesn't play every game, that will cause a problem if he becomes like a fringe player. So it says he's now at the ideal age for a 10 to 15 million euro move to a development-focused top 40 European club. Now, I think his value is a little bit higher than this, but actually maybe that value comes from his potential ability rather than a value that somebody's actually going to pay. Like I said before, I can't see people paying 30, 40 million for him because he hasn't proven that yet, has he? He's been playing in Greece, so maybe actually a 15 million euro move is about right for a team that is going to take a punt on him. And so I asked for the recommendation. ChatGPT said they would recommend for him to move to a mid-level club in a stronger development league, the Eredivisie, Belgium or Portugal, but only if he's going to play games, either as a guaranteed starter or a rotation option. I then asked for 5 teams to be recommended as well as ChatGPT's actual recommendation. And they came back with Heerenveen in the Eredivisie, Ghent in Belgium, Rio Ave in Portugal, Utrecht in the Eredivisie also, and Estoril Praia back in Portugal. I'm now going to ask, out of these 5, which would you recommend? And they've come back with Heerenveen, and I think we're going to put our trust in ChatGPT and hope that he can get himself into the team here. It says they've got a history of developing flair players, Hakim Ziyech, Erdegaard on loan, for example. They play a 4-2-3-1. Hopefully that reflects in Football Manager as well. That might suit him. And also the Eredivisie is high tempo but less physical, which is perfect for creative technical players, which could suit him because he's not the quickest, as we've talked about before. I'm going to go move him to Heerenveen now, and we'll have a look at whether he's going to get in that team. And here he is then at Heerenveen in the Eredivisie. I'm quite excited for this, and I actually think ChatGPT might have done a little bit of a madness here because I've been having a look at the Heerenveen team. I've moved him here for 16 million pounds. I thought that was about right. It's just below his value in game, which was about 21 to 63. And I've applied a bit of realism in thinking that actually Heerenveen aren't going to spend that much money, and his ability wise is about right, even though he has all of this potential. Maybe other teams will be a bit of a stalking horse here and wait for him to do well here, and then maybe jump in and take him away from Heerenveen. The reason I'm excited about this though is that I was having a look at the Heerenveen squad, and if I sort this by current ability, they do have a player or 2 that is better than Mendoza, but only 2. Look, the best player at the club is a new gen called Martin van Korstanje, who plays as their defensive midfielder, and then it's Simon Olsen, who's another central midfielder at 29, and then it's Álvarez Mendoza at 1-2-3, which makes him the best left winger at the club. And looking at the tactics, it seems like they play a 4-2-3-1, which means that ChatGPT has ticked pretty much every box so far. In the Eredivisie, they are predicted to finish 7th, so just outside those top teams. Maybe there's a chance they can sneak, now with this new signing, maybe they can sneak into those European spots. Maybe he can do well enough to develop enough to attract the interest of teams like Feyenoord or PSV, or maybe even Ajax. That to me feels like a really good next move in his career and something to aim towards, work towards. If I was his agent, that's what I'd be trying to say. I'd say do well at Heerenveen, get a move to one of the top teams in the Eredivisie, go and play then European football. It'll be Europa League or Champions League if it's one of the top teams. And then from there, that's the springboard to go and have the career that we all hope he can have, right? And so I suppose we need to go and see how his first season goes here at Heerenveen. Okay, so I've actually gone 2 seasons here with Mendoza because after his first season at Heerenveen, he was doing pretty well. And having spoke to ChatGPT, we both sort of agreed that we should carry on and do a second season at Heerenveen. So here we are in the year 2029. Thiago Álvarez Mendoza is now 21 years old and has had 2 seasons in the Eredivisie. Both have been pretty similar, actually. The first season, look, 30 games, 8 goals, 5 assists, 3 player of the matches, 6.8 average rating. That is solid enough at a decent level now in a decent league in the Eredivisie. Heerenveen finished 12th in the league that year, which wasn't amazing, a little bit below where they were predicted to be, but he'd established himself as the key player at the club. So when I spoke to ChatGPT, I gave all of the stats from the season, and they said basically, go again, see if he can do even better and continue to develop. And that is exactly what he's done. Second season, look, 31 games, 31 starts as well, 7 goals, so 1 less assists. He actually got 5 assists in that first year, which is his best of his career so far, and a 6.68 average rating. Stats wise, it doesn't look as good, but if we have a look at his profile now, you can see that he has really made leaps and bounds as a footballer. The big thing that I need to share with you though is the news that he is now a fully fledged Argentinian international. He never did make any more appearances for the youth teams for Argentina, but he has now made his debut. He made his debut, look, in a game against Brazil. It's not a bad debut to make, is it? He was 20 years old And after that, he went and got himself in the Heerenveen seasonal best 11. No more awards from there. But this is his profile. And it all means there's loads of development here. His pace is up to 14, acceleration's up to 15. That's a huge leap forward. And we know how important that is in FM anyway. He's also got 17 finishing and 16 dribbling now. You'd imagine this would make him a really potent threat off this left-hand side. The only thing that's missing is actually scoring the goals. He's got 15 in his 61 games here at Heerenveen, which is not exactly prolific, is it? However, all of this does mean that his current ability is up to 146, which is in line with some of the better teams in the league. I actually went and had a look at that because this was sort of our plan, wasn't it? Establish him at Heerenveen and then maybe look to move to a team like PSV or Ajax or maybe even Feyenoord. Or this season, it was AZ Alkmaar that finished in second place. I had a look at the Ajax team though, and one of their best players is Nachi Univar, who plays on this left-hand side of midfield. But his current ability is 141. Now, 146 from Mendoza does put him as the second best player in the Ajax team, according to current ability. And this does make me wonder whether a move to Ajax would be on the cards now. Think realistically, if Ajax had just won the league and they've got this new Argentinian international playing in the league, he's available, would they want to bring him in? I think they probably would. I also do wonder if he'd start to attract a bit of attention from other leagues now, having now made his debut for Argentina. This does all make me think that this might be the time to find him the next big move. His value is between 42 million and 125 million. And I wonder now if he's ready to make that next jump. Let's see what ChatGPT thinks. They say Thiago Álvarez Mendoza is officially at launch point. Here's the snapshot. I love how dramatic they're being. At the age of 21 then, the CA is 146 actually. That does need to be adapted. I think I put 145 rather than 146. He's actually better than this, so bear that in mind too. He's rapidly closing in on European elite starter level. Just for full context, I was having a look at Benfica and Porto starting players, and then I think it was Benfica had João Rego starting on the left wing. He was 155 CA, so he's a little bit below that. I did wonder if a move to Portugal might be a nice little thing, having been there in the past. I don't think he'd get in the team at either Benfica or Porto, so bear that in mind where it says he's closing in on European elite starter level. I think there still needs to be a bit more development at this stage. However, he got these 31 appearances, 7 goals, 5 assists. He got his milestone of making his senior debut for Argentina, and then the back-to-back inclusion in the seasonal best 11. I asked the question, is it time to move? ChatGPT says yes. He's outgrown Heerenveen. You've squeezed every ounce of development the club could offer. He's a star player, consistent starter, and a current ability of 145 or 146 puts him ready for top 6 Eredivisie sides or Champions League Europa League level sides in the Bundesliga, Liga 1 or La Liga. They say that staying now would be stagnation unless Heerenveen magically qualifies for Europe, which they haven't. So they suggested some next steps. They say he needs to be a guaranteed starter in a top 5 league. He needs a club with European competition. I agree. Europa League, even if it's Conference League, it would be a step up, wouldn't it? A style that suits his position and a manager that still trusts youth, because he is still only 21 years old, isn't he? ChatGPT suggests these teams in the Bundesliga: Freiburg, Mainz, Gladbach, Leverkusen, Sociedad, Villarreal, Betis in La Liga or in Liga 1, Lille, Rennes or Nice. And then back into the Portuguese league, we've got Sporting or Braga. Now that's interesting. I didn't have a look at Sporting, but I did have a look at Benfica and Porto. And the players there were slightly too good, but maybe Sporting is more suitable. However, ChatGPT recommends sending him to the Bundesliga or La Liga, where his flair, movement and intelligence will flourish. I think at this stage, I'm going to ask for an out-and-out recommendation for a specific team, as well as recommending Ajax, because I do think actually there is a move there staying in the Eredivisie that's not been really considered by ChatGPT. I'll see what they say about it. So I said, could I have a specific recommendation from your clubs, as well as my own recommendation to consider of Ajax staying in the Eredivisie? I've checked and he's better than the current left winger Univar, who is CA 141. Let's see what ChatGPT comes back with from this. Okay, so it says absolutely, you've got 2 strong contenders here, each with a very different career trajectory for Thiago. Your suggestion: stay in the Eredivisie and join Ajax. Why it's a great option. They play in the Champions League. Mendoza will be first choice left winger. Great facilities, coaching, tactical structure, pathway to a European giant. Perhaps actually something to consider there is that, yes, teams like Bayern and Arsenal and City, as it mentions, will buy players from Ajax very often, won't they? Risks though: Eredivisie is still a feeder league. He may dominate but plateau if he stays more than 2 seasons. They rotate heavily, so minutes aren't always guaranteed, and there is less pressure here. Ajax is the polished path, secure, smart, and sets him up for a massive transfer. Okay, ChatGPT's specific recommendation, though, is to move to Freiburg. in the Bundesliga. Interesting. And I feel like we're going to have to go with this because that's sort of the idea for this video, isn't it? Why Freiburg? Bundesliga club known for developing technically gifted, hardworking attackers like Grifo and Doan. They push players into tactical maturity and top physical condition. They often qualify for Europe or challenge in the top 6. Mendoza walks in as a key starter on the left flank. Now, ChatGPT doesn't have access to the save file to be able to see whether that actually applies. It's kind of guessing a little bit. So what I might do now is just check it and feed back that information to ChatGPT so they have all of the relevant info before making a decision. And I also do want to check that they actually are in Europe for next year, or whether they've actually dropped off in this save, which could be the case. Okay, so Freiburg actually did finish in the top 4. They have qualified for the Champions League, which does present it as being a really good move, actually, and one that I hadn't even considered. Maybe ChatGPT does know what's going on here. They finished 4th. However, having a look at their team, you'll notice that they play a 4-2-2 type system without wingers in it. They do play 2 strikers, but they've got pretty good strikers. They've got Gabigol and Mateta leading the line. Then they play 2 number 10s in behind. Now, I am unsure how Thiago fits into this specific system. Maybe they'd have to come inside and play as a number 10 a bit like Messi. Maybe that's something he could do. But what I think I will do is feed this back to ChatGPT and see if they change their mind. Although I'm very intrigued about it now. Okay, so I said, here's some additional info for your recommendation. Freiburg are indeed in the Champions League next season, and Mendoza is good enough to gain a starting place. I had a look at the current ability of these players, and he's better than most of them. So he would be in the best 11, basically. However, I've told ChatGPT that they play this 4-2-2 narrow system. What do you think? ChatGPT says that changes things. Thanks for the tactical screenshot. He says what it means: no natural wingers or wide attacking roles. Players like Petkovic and Solomon operate centrally, not on the flanks. So where would Thiago Álvarez Mendoza fit? His natural position as a left winger and his attributes are built to exploit space wide and cut inside. So in Freiburg, he'd likely play as one of the number 10s, which is not his most effective zone. We know this. He could adapt into playing as one of these roles, but he'd be playing in crowded central areas with fewer one-on-ones and less space to attack. What would ChatGPT recommend then? Verdict: it's tactically incompatible right now. Despite the Champions League football, the starter status, and the good squad and manager, the formation mismatch is significant. So you'd be risking slower development, lower ratings, and stalling traits. So the recommendation, based on all of the info, is kind of what I thought it might be. It's to go to Ajax instead. There we go then. This is a really fun way of doing this. I'm enjoying this. Let me know if you are enjoying the video, by the way. Leave a like on it if this is something you'd like to see. Maybe we could go and do different career paths with different types of players. See if we could save a career. Maybe if somebody that's stalled. That's an idea that's just popped into my head now. Let me know if you like this type of thing using ChatGPT. ChatGPT has decided, though, that we do need to go to Ajax instead. So I'm going to go and make that move for Mendoza, and I'll be back once he's played his first season at Ajax. All right, so I've actually given him 2 seasons then at this stage here. At 23 years old, Thiago Álvarez Mendoza is quite the player. I think we can all agree on that now. He's hit the media description of elite winger, and in 2 seasons at Ajax, it's been a little bit hit and miss, I think is probably what you'd call it. He's developed massively as a player. He's up to 164 current ability. That is an elite winger. That would get him into teams that are towards the top of the top 5 leagues, I'd probably say. There's probably players above him in a lot of those teams, but he'd definitely be in the squad and he'd be starting for most other teams in those leagues. In his time at Ajax, though, his stats look as follows. They are: first season, 31 games, 5 goals, 3 assists, 7.02 average rating. It's pretty good. Do you know what? That's fine. It's okay. 5 goals, maybe we're still looking for him to hit the heights that maybe you'd expect him to. With an attribute of 17 finishing and 17 dribbling and great pace and acceleration, maybe you want him to actually score more goals, especially if you're going to play him in the Eredivisie. However, in his most recent season, he kind of did do that. 29 appearances, 29 starts, 13 goals, 8 assists, 5 player of the matches, and his best average rating of his career so far, 7.23 average rating. It's a really good, strong season. It's what's taken him to the player that he's become now. Look, it's what's taken him to 13 caps for Argentina. It's what's going to make him, you'd imagine, hot property this summer. But I need to tell you about a few disappointments too. Over the course of his time at Ajax, Ajax have been, well, quite rubbish. In Mendoza's first season at the club, they finished 3rd. They were title winners the year before. They dropped down to 3rd, 11 points behind PSV, even behind Feyenoord in 2nd. You'd hope really that going to Ajax that you're going to get some league titles under your belt. It's almost one of the most guaranteed league titles that a player could go for in their career. Think of Harry Kane going to Bayern Munich and then Leverkusen winning the league. It feels a bit similar to that here at Ajax, but it gets worse. Not only did that only see them qualify for the Europa League for the second season here at Ajax, second season, they finished sixth. And we saw how good a season Mendoza just had on the pitch. But they finished sixth behind NEC Nijmegen, behind PSV 20, AZ Alkmaar, and then Feyenoord won the league this year. They only got themselves 57 points, even though Mendoza himself was really, really good. I wonder if maybe the age of the team caught up or something, but they have good players. He is listed as the key player, but Vélez up front is actually good, look, at this stage. And he, I think, was top goal scorer in the league. He's got a really good goal scoring record, look, 21 and then 19 at the club. Something went awry though. They sacked their manager and replaced him, look, but overall, it's not a great position to be in. At this stage of his career, at 23 years old, you'd imagine that Álvarez Mendoza would want to be playing football for a team that is in the Champions League. He had a taste of the Champions League in his first season at Ajax, but Ajax themselves didn't make the most of it. They finished 25th in the Champions League phase and not qualifying for the knockout rounds, which, I mean, that's not making the most of it, is it? Then the season after that, they were in the Europa League. In the Europa League, they got to the knockout playoff round where they lost to Vitória de Guimarães of Portugal. It's not quite the success story that you'd want it to be, at least on a club level. Luckily, though, on a personal development level, he has really developed. He has also, I suppose I should mention, won a couple of cups in his time. They won the Toto KNVB Becker Cup and also the Johan Cruyff Skal winner in both years, look, that he's been at the club. So there is a little bit of silverware in there. But overall, I think you'd have to say that this move hasn't been the success story that is going to push him onto Ballon d'Or winner, for example. So I'm going to imagine that ChatGPT is going to recommend him to move this summer. We're going to go there, give them all the information that is needed and see what they suggest. Okay, so I told him about the 2 seasons at Ajax and now he's thriving up to the CA of 164. I told ChatGPT about them slipping out of the Champions League, in the Conference League, etc. I said, is it time for an elite level move? Question mark. If so, where? Let me know if you'd like any top 5 league tables to help inform a decision. They responded, you're at the perfect elite crossroads with Thiago Álvarez Mendoza. So the snapshot adds all the information about the player, look, and then adds the Ajax context, which is back-to-back underwhelming finishes, 3rd and then 6th, which to ChatGPT at least says that Mendoza has outgrown the Dutch league and development has been slower without the bigger challenges of being in the top European competition. So the verdict is yes, it's time for the elite level move. I was expecting this. Who do they recommend that he should go to? Ideal next club profile should be that they play with an inside forward or an inverted winger, somebody who they play with a left winger, basically. They should be in a top 4 league and playing in the Champions League. There should be a starting role available, or at least competition for a starting role. They should play high press, technical, wide play, and trust players and under 25s. He's, of course, at this stage, only 23 still. Well, I then sent through the league tables and the season previews, and from that, they suggested that the best option was Arsenal. Now, Arsenal finished 3rd last season. They are in a really good position to go and challenge for the Premier League title. Arsenal fits in lots of ways. They play a 4-3-3. They are managed by Pep Guardiola, which I think makes the move really tempting, definitely. That would suggest that they could go and not only get into the Champions League, but maybe win the Champions League. There was one small caveat, though, about Arsenal, which we'll come on to. Alternatives were Atletico Madrid, Bayer Leverkusen, AC Milan, or staying at Ajax, which is listed here as being risky because of the way that they've been sliding and getting worse, basically. The final recommendation from ChatGPT was to move to Arsenal if they're interested. If not, look at Atletico or Leverkusen. So naturally, I went and scouted out these 3 teams and provided ChatGPT with a little bit more information in case they wanted to change their mind, basically. I said, additional info to consider for your recommendations. Arsenal do play a 4-3-3, but Martinelli is playing left wing and he is 180 current ability. So he's way above still at this stage, the level of ability of Mendoza. Atletico don't play with wingers. They play a 5-3-2. I think this rules them out. I think if you have a look at the way that other teams have been ruled out, Freiburg, for example, I think playing a 5-3-2 is probably a no-go. And then Leverkusen, although they did play the right system, a 4-2-3-1, their squad was aging and it didn't look very good. I also sent through the top 20 coefficient rankings just so that ChatGPT would have a real idea about how teams have performed in the last few seasons and who is the best teams to look for now that we're trying to go to the proper elite level, aren't we? They recalibrated with all this information and then suggested that we should move Mendoza to Leverkusen. Now, I didn't really agree with this. However, I can see why ChatGPT would come to this conclusion based on the information that they had. They did also suggest Arsenal again as a cautionary second choice because of the Martinelli log jam that they've called it. They also told us to avoid Atletico Madrid and some other teams in there too. They also threw in a wildcard option of Newcastle, although Newcastle finished 7th last year. I'm not quite sure they're good enough. However, I responded with the following. I sent through the strength of Leverkusen's squad. I included the current abilities of the players, and I said that I have strong concerns over the overall strength of it and whether they'd match Mendoza's ambitions. Is it worth considering that Arsenal's only real con is Martinelli being there and the fact that he is 30 and on the downwards arc of his career? I also mentioned that Pep Guardiola is the manager. Now, this may be seen as me playing into the narrative a little bit too much, but what I'm going to justify it by is by saying that ChatGPT didn't have all the information here, whereas I do, and I'm trying to give them that information so that they can make the most informed decision. Hopefully you sort of agree with me on that one. I think if we did go to Leverkusen, I think as a player, you'd sort of know this, even if your agent was telling you to. You'd look at the squad and go, I'm not sure it's good enough. Leverkusen squad, look, just for full clarity, their best player was a 158 player. Now, already he'd go in and be the star player by far. And we had this problem at Heerenveen where he outgrew his other players and we were never really going to improve. They are predicted to finish 2nd in the Bundesliga, but I think they'd be a long way off Bayern Munich, basically. ChatGPT said, thank you for all the context. This is a pivotal career moment for Thiago Álvarez Mendoza. He's 23, full Argentina international and approaching the elite tier with a CA of 164. ChatGPT then did come back with the recommended move of Arsenal, then listing the same things. They're in the Champions League. They've got Pep Guardiola. The CA of the players at the squad, I also sent through Arsenal's current ability as well. Look, the other players are good enough. He fits the system, but there is the Martinelli factor. Yes, he's still 180 CA, but the fact that he's now 30 means that he's past his peak and will hopefully start to regress, meaning Mendoza can get in the team. And hopefully if he's trending up, there will hopefully be a bit of a changing of the guards there and he can become the starter. At Arsenal, I think they have got the ceiling of him becoming a Ballon d'Or contender, Champions League finalist or winner, and the chance for Premier League titles. I think this is the best move for him. And I think ChatGPT would have suggested this if they had all the information immediately. So I'm going to go with it. I said, let's move him to Arsenal. And I mentioned that Barcelona, City and Real Madrid, who he asked about needing more information on, look, I'd said that they also have players blocking the way for him. For example, Ansu Fati has a 188 current ability, so he probably wouldn't get into that team either. I asked, what should the transfer fee be for Mendoza? And he went through and gave me this as a suggestion. He said about £75 million with add-ons, taking it to around £85 million. And we've had that in the past, haven't we? We've had Anthony go to Manchester United in that sort of ballpark figure. So I think it feels relatively realistic in that sense. So that's what I did. I moved him for £72 million initially with add-ons on top of this. And at Arsenal now, he might not be a starter to begin with, but they have handed him the number 14 shirt. And at Arsenal, that's a pretty big deal, isn't it? We're going to go now a couple of seasons at a time, maybe 3 or 4 seasons, depending on how things go. I'll be checking in with ChatGPT along the way too. And we're going to go and find out, is this going to be the move that takes Mendoza to that next level? Can we get close to that 183 potential ability? Right now, we are at 164. So we're not that far away. If there's enough game time with these facilities and things, we could see him make that leap. Let's hope that is the case. And I'll be back with an update soon. Okay, welcome back to Álvarez Mendoza's career then, where after now 3 seasons at Arsenal, he's finally established himself as a starter. Now this one, it almost went badly actually. This move to Arsenal, it felt like the right thing to do. I think having considered all of the options, it felt right. However, there was that risk of him not getting in the team ahead of players like Gabriel Martinelli, who is really good in this save here. He had a CA, a current ability of 180. Mendoza is still not even at that level. However, he has now regressed. Martinelli, that is. Mendoza is up to, after his 3rd season here, now at the age of 26 years old, Mendoza is up to a CA of 173. So he's 10 away from his potential ability. Whether he'll actually ever get to his potential of 183, I'm not sure. At 26 years old, I'm kind of wondering if we're going to see this as his absolute peak. Maybe in a couple of years, he could do a little bit more development, but he's a pretty good player. He's got 18 finishing, 16 acceleration, 16 pace, 16 agility, 60, all the 16s look where it matters in his physicals, but really like 20 off the ball look is really nice too. Maybe a slight improvement to his technique could be quite nice. His flair's at 17 as well. He is apparently a natural Raumdeuter, and you don't see many of those these days. He is the Argentinian Thomas Muller, but on the other side, and is playing for Arsenal instead. So not really that close to being Thomas Muller, is he? However, That's not really the point we're trying to make here. What I wanted to show you was the slow start to his career at Arsenal. So after his £72 million move, he came in and only started 4 league games that following season. This was the risk. Martinelli had the spot, and actually the manager Pep Guardiola was playing Martinelli on the left and also rotating him with Saka playing on the left as well. Those are not easy players to get in ahead of, and it so transpired. He played 4 games, was coming off the bench quite a lot, scored 3 goals, played well when he was on the pitch, but it just wasn't very often. Maybe you'd expect it to be a bit more the season after. It wasn't really. It was 7 starts the season after with less sub appearances. Again, did really well when he did play, 4 goals, 2 assists. But we had to be patient. We had to wait for the other players at the club to just get worse, basically. Going into this 3rd season at Arsenal, Martinelli and Saka were 31 turning 32. And this became the moment, the opportunity to get in the team. And it looks like, to me at least, he's taken it. He's played 52 games, all competitions, 28 starts in the league, 10 goals in the league with 4 assists, 2 player matches and a very healthy average rating at 7.11. It's actually 22 goals all competitions because he's had a really good run in Europe as well. And you may have seen, the eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed on his profile screen, a little mention here of being a Champions League winner. This season, Arsenal defeated PSG in the Champions League final to win the Champions League. Ethan Nwaneri scored the winner with, have a look at him there, look, Álvarez Mendoza starting on the left-hand side. The numbering here at Arsenal is truly embarrassing, really. Nwaneri's got 6 on. Mendoza's moved from 14 to 15. Lauren has now weirdly picked up the 14 shirt. All of that doesn't matter, though, because they did win the Champions League. It wasn't a great final, just 3 shots on target in the 90 minutes. It was Nwaneri's goal that won it. Álvarez Mendoza did get a yellow card, but a 7 rating in the final is pretty good. And he's got himself a Champions League winners medal on his CV. That's good. That is a good step forward in the quest to maybe win him a Ballon d'Or somewhere down the line in this save. I haven't actually checked, but I'm pretty sure he hasn't got anywhere near it so far. You wouldn't expect him to. Anyway, with that type of goal scoring record and average ratings, etc. At Arsenal in these 3 seasons, he has also won the FA Cup not once, but twice. He won it this recent season and also won it back in 2032 in his first season at the club. But also in his time at Arsenal, they did win the Premier League. Not this year. They were 2 points behind their North London rivals Spurs this year. But the season before that, they did win the league with 90 points. Look, this season where he didn't really play all that much, but he also does have then a Premier League winners medal on his CV too. It's been a good move. It's a good step forward to winning the Ballon d'Or, which I'm actually going to check in on and see who's been winning it and has he got anywhere near it. I've noticed straight away, I noticed that Ansu Fati has been winning it, which maybe tells me that moving to Barcelona or avoiding that move to Barcelona was a good thing because he would be ahead of him in the team, wouldn't he? Kulusevski's won it. Phil Foden won it last season. I mean, look, 33 years old Phil Foden did win it with a 7.71 average rating, 20 goals from left wing. Something to aspire to. Ansu Fati's actually playing on the right-hand side. Look at Saka, look. Came second 3 years ago and he was playing as a left winger. This is what I'm talking about. Guardiola was using these players on the opposite sides that you'd expect them to be on. Guardiola, by the way, is no longer the manager at Arsenal. De Zerbi has taken over from him. Pep was sacked in 2032, look, after, I mean, less than 2 years in the job. The other managers in this save, we just hide those caretakers of Jack Wilshere, look, in there. We've had Arteta followed by Ancelotti, then Guardiola, and now De Zerbi in charge. So some big names. Now, with all of this considered, looking like a really good player at 26, 28 caps, 10 goals for Argentina, I think ChatGPT is going to recommend that he stays at Arsenal. I'd be surprised if that wasn't the case, but let's check in and find out. So this was the blurb that I gave ChatGPT to tell them about how he's been doing at Arsenal. I said, end of season 11, he's 26. After struggling to break into the first team for the first 2 seasons, now he's a starter, up to 173 current ability. They've won the Premier League, FA Cup and UCL in his 3 seasons, as well as finishing 4th and 2nd in the other seasons. I said, I assume the plan should be to keep him at Arsenal for the coming years still. Perhaps look at a move to Real Madrid or Barcelona at around 28 or 29. I think there is another move in him, even if we're going to think about wages and maybe the most glamour that he can get as a player. I think there is a move to a Real Madrid or a Barcelona, maybe when Ansu Fati drops off, for example. But I think for now, ChatGPT will agree with me that he should stay at Arsenal, and that is what happens. Look, they said, yes, keeping Thiago Álvarez Mendoza at Arsenal for the next 2 to 3 seasons is absolutely the right call at this point in his career. Here's why. He's established as a starter. There is an elite competitive environment. They've just won the Champions League. There is an excellent manager, although ChatGPT don't realise that Pep has gone and it's De Zerbi. So maybe we need to feed that in so that they have the full context there. Age and prime, he's entering his peak years, which suggests he'll hit 175 plus current ability soon, making him world class. He's really not that far away from it. And then it does go on to talk about this medium-term plan to move to Real Madrid or Barcelona. They say yes, but not until he's 28 or 29, and here's the reason. They've got players that will block their way. For example, Ansu Fati. I'm not quite sure what his CA is now, whether he's even playing on the left wing, because it looked like he's playing right wing when he won the Ballon d'Or, wasn't it? But a couple more years and he will be able to hopefully get in that team. Then there's the narrative arc as well. A late prime or early veteran switch to one of Spain's giants would make sense for a South American like Mendoza. It's completely true, isn't it? How many South American players dream of playing for Real Madrid or Barcelona? I think we should factor that into this career here and try and see if we can get him that move, especially if Arsenal don't continue to win things, I suppose. They actually then give us a bit of a plan as well for the rest of the career. They say Arsenal now until about 28, then Real Madrid and Barcelona, Real Madrid or Barcelona until they're about 31 as a superstar signing, and then maybe a return to Argentina, the MLS, or maybe a mentor role later on to end the career chapter. That'd be a nice plan. Let's see if we can make it come to fruition. I'm going to go and do another couple of seasons at Arsenal, maybe taking him up until he's about 28, and then we'll reconvene and see how he's doing. All right then, now Mendoza is really cooking. We have just completed the next 2 seasons of his career. He's still at Arsenal, of course. We've not moved him on, and the game hasn't moved him on organically either. He's now 28 years old with a current ability very close to his potential now, 179. We have managed, or ChatGPT has managed, to push him all the way up close to that potential ability. And it's at this stage now that we need to make a decision about, do we stay at Arsenal and stay there for the entirety really of the rest of his career, or is this now the stage to make that glamour move that we talked about before? Real Madrid and Barcelona were the 2 teams that we considered, and I'll put all of this information to ChatGPT and see what they decide, basically. We must, though, talk about these past 2 seasons because they've been pretty successful again. And this latest season, Arsenal did win the league again, 95 points. And look here, who was the top goal scorer in the entire league. Him and his strike partner, and yes, it is a strike partner, Benjamin Sesko, have scored 25 and 22 goals respectively. And I say strike partners because here at Arsenal, they've moved to a 4-4-2. And then I know it's not shown on here, but the main man up front this season has been Mendoza, Álvarez Mendoza. 37 starts, look, 33 goals. In all competitions, he has scored, well, yeah, 33 and 37. He got 25 and 22 starts in the Premier League. Sometimes not starting because they've got Nwaneri and they've signed Sesko, but he's been their top goal scorer and he was the top goal scorer in the league as well. And I wonder now if there is a switch to being a striker, does that open some doors when it comes to the Ballon d'Or potentially? I do wonder. They've got him on £200,000 a week now, I've noticed as well. I actually think that's a little bit low still for this stage in a save and for the player that he is. The other thing that I need to mention is that in the Champions League, they've just lost the final this season now. They lost to their North London rival Spurs. Imagine that for a final. It'd be outrageous, wouldn't it? It was a 57th minute winner from Gutierrez. He didn't actually play this game, although he was on the bench and didn't come on. Look, they've given him the number 9 shirt as well, which I think is quite fun. Changing his number every season, basically. But despite this disappointment, the year before this, they did win the Champions League with a win over Juventus. So 2 Champions Leagues in his bag, if you like. Now didn't play in this final either, look, on the bench. I think even just because of that, maybe that's why he needs to move on now. But he's got Champions League wins, he's got Premier League wins on his CV. He's at a place, if we just go to milestones here, look, he's got at a place where he's won a lot at this stage now. Top goal scorer in the Premier League. I wonder if he gets closer to this Ballon d'Or in December when it's handed out again, because the most recent winner was Facundo Buonanotte at Brighton, who plays right mid and got a 7.67 average rating. I wonder if he can be closer. He's never been in the top 3. I wonder if this is the time. What's his average rating? 7.31. It's not really quite good enough, even though it is his best of his entire career. Look, maybe it's time to make that move now that maybe he's a striker. Maybe he can go and get himself into one of those top teams around Europe. I will put all of this information to ChatGPT and see what they suggest. Okay, so here's the information that I gave. I said that he's now 28 with his CA of 179. They won another Champions League, won another Premier League title. I said, is it now time to move abroad for that glamour transfer? I did also mention that he's been used as the central striker a bit more. And for a bit more context, I said that Real Madrid are Spanish champions. Maybe that holds a bit too much weight and it will lead into it too much. But I think it's important because we talked about Barcelona or Real Madrid. I wanted to check which team was better at the moment. And Real Madrid are the Spanish champions. So let's see what he says about that. He says, yes, this is the perfect time for Mendoza to make his glamour move abroad. Here's the case and the best direction to go. They say why this is the right time to move. At 28, he's now in his absolute prime, and with his versatility used more centrally lately, he offers world-class quality across the front line. That's interesting as well, something to mention. He's sealed his legacy at Arsenal. He's won the Champions League. He's won the Premier League. He's completed it a little bit. Now is it time to move abroad? Maybe. He's marketable, he's proven, he's peaking, ideal profile for a Galactico-style transfer, and there are a lot of evidence of this happening in the past. And then it says his value sweet spot, his estimated value between 49 and 148 million. It's a massive range, but Arsenal would still get a big fee for him, so it's not unreasonable to go to a super club and get a big fee for him. So ideal destination, it says, is Real Madrid. Real Madrid over Barcelona because they're the champions, the tactical fit, and then the legacy alignment. I like how ChatGPT brings these things in. The Argentinians that have played for Real Madrid, although you could maybe make this argument for Barcelona. Was there any good Argentinians that played for Barcelona over the years? I can't think of any. Was there? Anyway, it talks about Di Stefano, Redondo, Higuain, Gago. I love how Fernando Gago's got himself into there. And now Mendoza have done the white shirt. It fits the narrative. I do agree with that. And then it does mention Fati here, even though I think that's got confused about it being Barcelona, not Real Madrid, etc. This, though, is the agreement that this is the time to move for an estimated transfer fee of 90 to 110 million pounds. So I'm going to go and do that now. And we're going to go and see how Mendoza can do as a Galactico. Will it be the right move? I think there is actually a discussion to be made here about whether he should just stay at Arsenal. They're winning lots of things. They've just won the league and lost the Champions League final. They are right at the very top, but I think he'll want this glamour move. So let's go and make it happen. Okay then, so I'm going to confirm it. I'm going to say it now. Moving to Real Madrid was a great idea, and it's gone really, really well. This is Álvarez Mendoza in the year 2041. He's been at Real Madrid now for 5 seasons. We've jumped way into the future, and I just want to show you this screen here to talk about whether or not this has been a success or not. Look at these average ratings for his time at Real Madrid. It was a 7.99 in the first season, and no, I know what you're going to say. Surely that's good enough for a Ballon d'Or. It hasn't been. He hasn't won a Ballon d'Or, and I'm actually a little bit gutted because I feel like he's played good enough. Look, 13 goals, 14 assists, 11 player of the matches, 7.99. If that goes into an 8, surely he wins it. 18 goals the following season, 24 goals the season after that. They used him as a striker at this stage here, and then 18 and then 18. I mean, really, really solid ratings. Now he's 33 years old and he's starting to decline a little bit. I say decline, really. If we have a look at him, he's still 167 current ability. He did reach 181. That was his maximum. So his potential ability of 183 never quite got there, but got pretty close. I mean, not too bad, is it? And he's now looking like this. He still looks like a fantastic player at 33. He's got himself 80 caps for Argentina, 60 goals in 80 caps. He is an Argentinian legend. I don't think it actually shows you the legends on at least not in my skin here. Oh no, it does. It does give you a list of legends. Did he ever make the legends list? Oh no, he did. He is in the legends list as well. So he is an Argentinian legend. And I did want to check that because one thing I do want to show you here at Real Madrid, he has made it as an icon of Real Madrid. Now that is not bad if you consider how many legends and icons and favourite personnel Real Madrid have had down the years. To fit in to this group of players alongside Casillas and Modric and Benzema and Cristiano Ronaldo is not too bad going. One day maybe he'll get himself into this legends part here. Vinicius Jr.'s got himself in there. Thomas Frank is a Real Madrid legend. He is the manager, by the way. That isn't as random as it seems. Thomas Frank, Real Madrid legend. And that's probably because they've managed to win a few things in the past few seasons. Let's have a look now. If we go to his career milestones, this is probably the best way to do it, because there are some real high highs to go through. This most recent season, Real Madrid, I don't know if it's this one. Yeah, it is. They have just off the back of winning the La Liga again. They also won a couple of trophies, the Copa del Rey and the Super Cup. They won La Liga the season before that as well. And you can see him here, look, coming third placed in FIFA's Best Men's Player Award. He did this quite a lot. He was also the FIFA Pro Player of the Year. So he is winning individual awards, as I mentioned before. Never quite that Ballon d'Or, which is a shame. He was the FIFA Pro Player of the Year again here, runners up for the European Best Men's Player, European Golden Shoe third place. They won La Liga again. They won the Super Cup again. He was runner-up in goal 50. This is the best he did. Ballon d'Or, third placed in 2037-38. He was third to Lamine Yamal and Americo Jorge Paciencia, who plays for Liverpool. There he is, look, in third place. He was 30 years old when he did it after scoring 26 goals and getting a 7.76. Annoyingly, he had a better average rating than Paciencia, but I suppose we can't argue because he got less of a rating than Lamine Yamal. Did he have... Look at that. Somebody won it with a 7.49. The year before that, he got a 7.99 average rating, and I know he came third. He's come third twice, look. He was third that year as well. 7.87. Of course, the 7.99 might not be quite 7.99 on here because it's over the course of the entire year rather than the season, which is why this happens. But the best he's done Ballon d'Or wise is third, and he got third twice. But he is winning the league every year, look. They won the Super Cup there. They haven't, or didn't, win the Champions League whilst at Real Madrid, but he was still pretty successful. If I just go to La Liga here, you can see they've won it for the past 3 seasons. Barcelona the year before that. Just off the back of getting 90 points here, he was the top average rating in the entire league. Look, he's a footballing icon at this stage. Real Madrid icon, Argentina legend. And the reason we are stopping now, the reason why I've come back now, is because at the age of 33 and on the decline as he is, I think there's a bit of a decision to be making. His contract is up next year, and on £475,000 per week, I don't think they're going to want to renew that necessarily. He did start 32 games though in the league last year. I wonder now, is it time for him to move on and have that little swan song that some players do like to have at the end of their career? Just by the way, just to show you the career stats here rather than being underneath me, he's got 91 goals in 167 games. He got 100. He's played 516 games and scored 193 goals. Considering how slowly he started goal scoring wise, that's not that bad in the end. He's really picked it up at the end of his career, hasn't he? But all of this considered, I have fed in this information to ChatGPT with the following paragraph. I said, Mendoza's 33 and on the decline. His CA is still good at 176. It's actually come down a little bit since then. But I wonder if it's time to have a fairy tale twilight to his career. Where would you recommend? And then I gave some suggestions. Perhaps he could move back to Greece with Asteras, or potentially to his Argentinian homeland. What's the closest team to San Juan? I don't actually know the answer to that. There's also any of his former teams, Arsenal, Ajax, Heerenveen, or a move to MLS or to Saudi. I said to ChatGPT, I'll let you decide. And then also, for what it's worth, he's finished third in the Ballon d'Or twice, actually, I should have said. Runner-up in the FIFA Men's Best Player Awards twice, and won La Liga 3 times, as well as other cups. This is what ChatGPT said to decide how he's going to finish his career. It says, given everything Mendoza has achieved, Ballon d'Or top 3, multiple league titles, etc., his next and final move, or likely final move, should be to one that honours his story, identity, and emotional legacy. I couldn't agree more. That's exactly what I was trying to get at, ChatGPT. And they have decided that a return to Argentina to Club Atlético San Martín, which is in San Juan, is the best way to go. This is perfect because it's his hometown club, the main club from San Juan, Mendoza's birthplace. It's as close as home as you can get. There's emotional resonance, bringing his journey full circle, if you like. He's still really good. So we can go there and play in the Argentinian leagues, which, you know, there's a good standard there because it's Argentina. He's a cultural icon. He wouldn't just be a player, he'd be a phenomenon. The home fans would worship him, and then he'd inspire the next generation. Now, ChatGPT did give us the alternatives of going to Greece or to one of his former teams or to MLS or Saudi, and gave the reasons why it didn't like those as options. For example, MLS or Saudi is money over meaning. It's less poetic. I agree. And that's why we're going to send Mendoza to Argentina with Club Atlético San Martín. Now, it did say, do you want me to mock up a press announcement? So I said, yeah, go on then, why not? And this is what they came up with. It's time to say goodbye to the fans, coaches, and my teammates at Real Madrid. Thank you for the years of friendships, unforgettable triumphs. I'll always remember you in my heart. Very poetic, very nice indeed. However, we're going to send Mendoza to Argentina, not now in the summer, but in January, which is when the Argentinian season begins, because so actually he's going to get another half a season here at Real Madrid and maybe achieve a little bit more. I'm now going to go and play out the final years of his career, and I'll be back to let you know how Thiago Álvarez Mendoza sees out this glorious career that he's managed to have. And here he is as a 35-year-old man about to retire. It's the 31st of December. His contract expires today, and then after that he's already said that he's going to be retiring at the end of his career. And he's had a lovely time here at San Martín. He's played another, I'll just pop it up on here for you. He's played another 65 games for his career, and he's got himself 38 goals in those games as well, which is a lovely little return back in Argentina. Real Madrid, by the way, in that extra half a season we gave him, he hit his 100th goal for the club, and I think that's actually really nice and poetic. He also, I should show you, has now moved himself into the Legends bracket at Real Madrid, alongside Vinicius Jr., Raul, Zinedine Zidane, Real Madrid legends, and Thomas Frank, who actually is no longer manager there and is retired now. Fair play to Thomas Frank, legend in his own right, apparently. This, though, is the end of the Mendoza story. You can see his entire career there. What a career myself and ChatGPT, have managed to carve out for him. It's a very poetic, beautiful story, if you like. We started slow at Asteras in Greece. We gave him that little loan to Panachaiki. He then moved to Portugal for União de Leiria, and he was pretty good. And then it kind of took off after that, didn't it? He developed enough to get himself into that Asteras team. Went to Heerenveen, Ajax, Arsenal. Arsenal, he achieved massive things. Won the Champions League twice there. Real Madrid won La Liga, as well as getting himself into that top 3 of the Ballon d'Or, becoming a legend at Real Madrid. That's not bad, is it? And then finally, seeing out his career back in Argentina, in his homeland, where his dad started things out. Lovely poetic story. I really hope you enjoyed this one. It's been a lot of fun to make. It's taken me absolutely ages. So for that, please leave a like on the video and leave me a comment down below. What do you want to see next? Let me know. I'd love to go and do this in a different way. I think I talked about it before. Maybe a challenge where we take a real life career and see if ChatGPT or me as an agent can kind of save it and move it in the way that sees it come to a beautiful end like this, maybe. Before we go, I did want to mention as well really quickly that I do understand people's reservations with using things like ChatGPT and AI models in general. It is something that I fully acknowledge. I think in this case, I wanted to use it because I think it makes for really good content. However, sort of offset me using an AI model in the way that I have done today. I have made a donation to Just One Tree, which is a charity organization that plants trees, try and offset carbon emissions and the like, for example. Just wanted to share that with you as well, because I do appreciate it. Your views on this are completely valid, and people have gone rush into the comments to say this. Maybe you could just let them know that I do appreciate it. And I'm not saying that that completely condones it, but I did just want to acknowledge that in the video. Anyway, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you in the next one. And yeah, see you in a bit.